Hello, I'm Antoine Archie, the voice of Pinfall Wrestling Association, and we're here at the Pinfall Academy, and I have a special exclusive interview with the former two-time regional champion, Bryan Ealey. Bryan, thank you for this time.
Thanks for having me.
Basically, just want to talk with you. We haven't seen you in the Pinfall Wrestling Association ring since Brawloween, and that was when you had to release the regional championship because of the heart attack that you had last year. Your last match was at Grand Wrestling Spectacle 2014, and wanted to sit down and see how you're doing.
All right.
Let's back it up, son.
Okay.
Let's go back to kind of like the beginning of your career. What was it for you coming into the wrestling world?
Oh man, it was everything. You were around back then, so you got to see it all firsthand. Nobody spent nobody spent any more nights in the gym than I did back then.
Okay.
Not always the most popular company when I started out, or was in, but being 3CW, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. At that time, it was home. It took a long time to find another place like that. We have a PWA to consider home. So I was there a lot. It was a passion. You could probably ask my mother or my father. I was probably born to entertain, whether it be in the squared circle or on a stage with a guitar over my shoulder. One way or another, I've always somehow been in a spotlight somewhere.
Right. You've always had music as another option.
Oh yeah, it was in doing both. Back then, gosh, I was a young father, recently divorced, so I'm making all these rehearsals. We're recording, because we were an original band, so we were in the studio recording. We're also doing small tours all around, and opening up for 80s hair metal bands and just anybody who would listen. Gosh, the schedule back then was just hectic. I don't even know if I could keep up with it now. Especially when now my daughter Bella's 10, going to be 11. She's got sports and stuff like that. I just don't think that kind of schedule I could keep up with anymore. But
right.
I was a busy guy back then.
Oh yeah. What really got you in? I know you can say you're a fan of wrestling, but what made you make the decision that this is what you wanted to do?
I think like everybody, you guys like Hogan and Warrior, they brought you to it. They were the attraction that you had to see. The two guys, and there was two tag teams, that just made me say, if I ever get the chance, this is what I want to do, and this is what I want to be. The Hart Foundation being one of them, and the Rockers being the other.
Yeah.
And you don't have to look hard or dig deep to find out I'm a huge Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels mark. Those were the two I just identified with. And I just had to do what they did. I didn't care anymore about the Warrior and stuff. It was about the athleticism, the storytelling. I've always been a bigger guy, but I've always been a bigger guy that could fly. So having that kind of a style was always what I wanted to lean towards.
So I take it watching that Iron Man match between those two.
It's like going to church, man.
So that had to be a big deal for you.
It was, and it was one of those things that, watching as a kid, and I remember this because I didn't get to see the pay-per-view full out as it happened. So we had cable, and I used to run the lines in, they just go into the back of your TV. You could go to the pay-per-view channel and it'd still be scrambled, but you could see half of it.
Right.
I was that big of a mark. I was sitting down there the whole time seeing what I could see to watch the match the best I could. WrestleMania 12 has always been my favorite WrestleMania. They're WrestleMania. I think 6 and 12 are my two favorites of all time. And it's
Hogan and Warrior.
Hogan and Warrior.
Yeah. Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels.
Yes. It's a huge contrast of styles, but those were always. And there was other matches like in WrestleMania 6 that I loved. Demolition versus Hakeem or not Hakeem, but Haku and Andre. It was a great match
Yeah.
for what it was. I mean, it wasn't a scientific barn burner by any stretch of the imagination, but I mean, I think WrestleMania 6, I was 10, so it was all great back then.
What does wrestling and PWA mean to you now?
It's still everything. I had to kind of organize things. After everything went south, you start realizing, family stuff around you that you kind of put off means more. But then I start to realize, who I am and, who my family is and who they've stood up behind. And they stand behind this company 110%. They always have. So it means a lot.
Right. What was life for you leading up to the heart attack and surgery?
Something was wrong. I knew something was wrong. I didn't know what was wrong. I'd went into a few times after a PWA show, my vision got cut in half. And so I went into the ER then, and they had told me that it was, my blood pressure had shot high, and nobody knew why. Checked me. They thought I had a stroke then, actually, and I went through all these tests, and I was fine other than my vision it split. It was like a squiggly line right between both my eyes, cutting it off, and you just couldn't make anything out. You could see to walk and everything, but I mean, it's just annoying and scary at the same time. So I got through that, and of course, I mean, if you don't know, I was one of the morons that smoked, and heavily. I always had. So, I mean, I get told to quit that, and, of course, the story is I know. So, I mean, I just keep marching on, and I had a couple hard chest pains. Like, they just took my breath away. And wanted where I was working at the time, and wanted a show at another company I was doing outside. And I just toned it out, no big deal. It's probably just my lungs. Need to quit smoking anyway. And I kind of got scared about that because cancer, I've noticed, is running the family. So, I mean, the wheels are turning to stop,
Right.
And if anybody knows me, I've been trying to quit for a while. It was the slave addiction. It wasn't, don't want to anymore.
Right.
And so I went in one other night, and they told me I had GERDs, which is an acid reflux disease. And I bought it. Because, I mean, they told me then it would stop anything, it just stop you dead in your tracks. And it did. I noticed I had a real problem when I was eating a bottle of Tums, the big bottles, in 2 weeks. I would just be constantly popping them, and, I'd have them with me, I'd have them everywhere. I'm short of breath, but yet, I'm still an athlete. I can still kick in. I can see, the mindset of, you're winded, but oh well, the show goes on. Honestly, I was wondering too. I knew something was wrong because the performance of what I normally give was getting harder. Like it was. It was. I didn't know if I was going to have to quit myself back then because I'm like, I thought I chalked it up to, well, I just turned 30. They say your body changes, and I didn't know we changed that much.
Right.
But I knew something was wrong. I just didn't know what.
Right.
And at that point in time, Grand Wrestling Spectacle was right around the corner for Grand Wrestling Spectacle 4, and I wasn't about to say anything to anybody to miss that. Like that was, I didn't. Not to say I was going to kamikaze something to get through it. I didn't think anything of that extent was wrong, but I wasn't. If I had to take a couple weeks off, nobody was going to fire me.
So, right before Grand Wrestling Spectacle 4, how were you feeling? Was it
tired? Always tired. Feeling fine, not having any chest pains. Couldn't eat certain foods. They just completely triggered, the acid reflux or whatever. Tired was the best way I could explain it. No energy to do anything. The drive was there, the energy wasn't. I could just almost lay down and sleep at the drop of a hat. It was any time. It wasn't, I'd sit there and fall asleep. I'm just like, gosh, I'm just tired. Just need to go home and rest in. I remember the night leading up to it, I was in the training center. When it all went down, I think referee Tim Gibbons, I asked him to, take me home because I just didn't feel very well.
Right. Yeah, I was with you earlier.
Yeah, we had
Yeah.
earlier that day. We
Yeah.
went and picked a few things up for the ring.
Right. Yeah, it just really shocked me when I heard the news.
And then I remember walking around that day. I mean, something was wrong. I mean, I knew something. I think I even said something to you in the car about it. I just feel weird today, or so, something's weird. I don't know what it was.
And like you said earlier, you just thought it was maybe the acid reflux.
Yeah, acid reflux, or I have horrible anxiety. My stepfather died in front of me, and from that day forward, I mean, I've had, so I've had signs of heart attacks that this is anxiety. And it probably all was back then. So, I mean, I could overlook a lot of that stuff. It's all in your head, it's okay, and you can kind of calm that down. Anxiety is a horrible thing when you actually get the full-on anxiety attacks with all the warm adrenaline rushes and everything. It's just awful. So, I mean, you gotta, it's the mindset, it's the mind over the body at that point and bringing yourself back.
Right.
So, I mean, I overlooked a lot that I shouldn't have.
Leading up right before the heart attack, what do you remember, if anything?
I had an awful acid indigestion and I couldn't get rid of it. Now, you'd normally think the pain would be up here or over here. I mean, it was right here, more abdominal pain, right below in the lower chest. I didn't think nothing of it. I mean, I'm hurting, I'm hunching over. I was lightheaded and dizzy at times, and I was just like, gosh, this is hurting so bad. We went and did our thing, and I was fine for a while. I got moving and I was going and everything was fine. I remember being at the training center, sitting on my phone, just not feeling well. I remember I asked him if he'd take me home that night. I didn't feel like, I just felt weird, didn't want to drive or whatever. Tim took me home. And I sat there and laid in my bedroom and had watched TV and I just couldn't get it right. I mean, it just wouldn't stop, and the pain just kept getting worse. And just a constant burnout. So,
like a chest pain too? Or?
Right now, just all right here. Just a constant burning. And I'm eating Tums like they're going out of style. I had said something to my mom about it. She's bringing me Nexium pills. I took them. Liquid Rolaids on top of all. I mean, Pepto. I mean, I'm dumping anything that will, and I'm getting relief for a little bit. Like, it's working for like 5 or 10 minutes, and that's it. I fell asleep. I got enough to fall asleep, and I woke up at 2:30 in the morning, and it just wouldn't quit. I mean, and I laid in bed. I was fine. As soon as I sat up, I was like, oh. And so I eventually called my mom back again, and that time I was roommating with sound guy Jason Kluge, and who's been, if you don't know, one of my best friends for 15, 16 years. But she had called him because I originally wasn't going, on my porch smoking a cigarette, telling everybody I was going to be all right. He comes out and he said, "Hey, let's just go have a look there." I'm like, okay. Your buddies talk to you. You tend to, okay. So we go in, and of course I make him wait because I'm smoking a cigarette, my last one of that pack actually, before I went in there. And I'm like, it's going to be forever before I get out. I'm going to have one. He's like, okay. Go in there, tell them what's going on. They took me straight back. I told them, I don't think any of this is heart related. But it's really bad. Took me to an AKG. She looked at me and goes, "You're fine." I'd had a few of those before with some of the panic attacks. The first ones I had, they said nothing looks any different. So if they say AKG catches a heart attack, it doesn't. It doesn't always catch it, even if you've had one or you've had damage, because I had some and it didn't show anything. I wound up getting a really bad headache, and I asked for, told them about that. I think they gave me a Vicodin and a GI cocktail. I remember me and Jason were laying there. This is close to 5 in the morning at this time. We'd been there a while. They took blood and did all that. We're watching Cheers, and I'm half falling asleep, and my symptoms are gone. Like, it worked. Whatever they gave me, that GI cocktail, my headache was gone, my blood pressure wasn't high anymore, and it was fine. And the nurse comes in, and I sit up real quick because I'm, expecting my discharge papers and a diagnosis of some sort, and we'll be on our way, and I'll be down the road because I got to stop at the gas station before I get home. We all know why. And I found out your guy wasn't going anywhere. And then I panicked. She had said the blood work had showed oxygen or loss of oxygen to my heart. And that's when they told me I'd had a heart attack. Physically feeling it or remember it, some of the classic signs had happened 2 to 3 months before that. Like where I was telling you, it just took my breath completely away for a second, and I could move or lean over, and then I was fine. I had no idea that's what I mean. So I probably not the first one I'd had. You know, that's the first one they caught. And so I freak out, and I call my mom, who, you know, and I start, you know, bawling like a baby. Hey, they say I've had a heart attack, and they found damage somewhere. And I'm 30 years old. What the hell's going on? And so she gets there and gets back, and of course, they thought I was going into another one because my blood pressure and my heart rate shot to 165 because I wound up having an anxiety attack. And I don't feel that day that was a heart attack. That was just me wigging out. And so they rushed me straight to a heart cath. I'm like, we're going to give you 2 stents. Okay. My grandmother, who was in her 60s or 70s, had a few heart attacks in her 60s and 70s and had a few stents. So I was up in the cath lab a few times, knew what that was about. Okay. All this it's weird, running through your mind. I mean, I remember Jason was great. He followed me all the way up there. I'm not an overly emotional person, but he grabbed my hand and I took it. And, just thinking up there, the other thing I could think about was my daughter. What's going on there? Kind of emotional and hard to go through some of this, but and I thought, if I made it through it, life was going to be different. But I mean, you're going in and you don't know if you're going to make it through it. Everybody's telling you you're all right. They're telling me to breathe because I'm about to pass out because I'm freaking out. And I honestly believe that's what that was. I don't think I was having a heart attack when they took me up there. I mean, I was just wigging out. And at that point, you convinced your mind that this is not this. This is, you're fine. And, oh my God, it is this. And what's this mean for me? I'm 30 years old. I mean, I got to work. I got a 10-year-old little girl. I mean, she needs a dad. She needs, somebody's got to help take care of her. All these thoughts running through my mind. Even the business. Oh my God, I just won the regional title. What the hell is this? I mean, that even went through my head. I mean, what's going on there? And they gave me something because they don't knock you completely out. So they twilighted me, and so I can hear everybody talking, but I can't really feel anything.
You couldn't respond to anything.
I could talk to him. I could talk to him. I just couldn't feel nothing, and I was, you're that in and out. You're like half asleep, but if somebody talks to you, you can, you're laying on the couch, that half asleep mode or whatever, where you answer and you talk back. And I, pardon my French, heard the doctor say, "Oh shit," and I'm like, kind of just stuck my head up a little bit. What's the oh shit?
It's not good to hear that.
No, and the nurse comes running by me, and she's like, just don't sit up, you're fine. And of course they had the catheter, you're not supposed to move anyway. And he went out of the room for a little bit, and then she walked over and told me that they can't do the stents. I'm so far blocked that they're going to blow an artery trying to do it. And I'm like, okay, so what's this mean? I said, we keep you on blood thinners and we do open heart surgery. And I'm like, wonderful. What else do you say to that? They took me into another room. I remember my mom, my brother, and my father, and my sister, I think, was the first ones I saw. My mom, she didn't know at the time that they'd already told me, or I was awake enough to even know. And so she told me, and we talked a little bit, and then it's sitting and waiting, because my blood's too thin. I'd have to have a blood transfusion if they did it. They put all this stuff in to thin me out, and sat in the hospital for 4 days. And it was a Thursday night. And, oh God, it was the worst 4 days of my life. Just sitting there thinking, you just reflect on everything. I remember they brought my daughter in on day 3, and I couldn't quit crying. I mean, you just look at her and just start bawling. And You know, and of course, I had great family, friends. Most of you, I think, know that me and Rick Mystic are probably as close as brothers can get, if not closer. He was there with me the whole time. He spent the night. Well, he spent the night on me, told me to forget about everything was going to be all right, brought his computer up, and we watched NXT Arrival. And it was a nice night just to get through that, just me and him. Right. Other than, bitching and complaining about the Wi-Fi at the hospital sucking. And we had them lag on it. Other than that, we were great. And, I remember going into the surgery. Didn't know if I was going to come out. Everybody else I think knew they'd be all right. I didn't. I had pushed the candle so hard, and you know as well as I do at the early years playing the independent wrestler, the rock star, that I honestly thought that maybe my number had been called. It's not that I never had a drug addiction. I drank, but it was never something that I had to have. But I would do astonishing amounts when I did do it. And, you kind of party like that, it takes a toll on your body. Right. You don't rest as well as you do. Plus, you're coughing down or smoking 2 packs a day. That ain't helping either. I'd been doing that since I was 14 years old. So, honestly, I thought maybe I'd actually pushed it too far. And
not to mention being a wrestler.
Yeah, the stress, this is not easy. This is full contact. They say football players got it rough. Well, I'm sure they do, and I'm sure they do, but they get an off season. We don't stop. I more or less, we hurt something or sprain something. We're not taking the next 3 months because we pulled a hamstring off. We're taping that hamstring up and we're still going. And working around injuries and working through injuries and, back problems. And if you don't know, most people know my right knee is shot. And I was told at 17 I'd never do any kind of sports again, let alone wrestling. It's, have to have a brace with steel hinges on it for all the hyperextensions and dislocate. It's just gone. I did so bad it chipped my femur. I've ripped this shoulder out. I have countless broken ribs. It's not an easy life, but it's a very rewarding life. Most people, don't understand that. Unless you're in the business, it's hard to explain. The best way I can explain is if you've ever rode a motorcycle and you get that fever that you got to be on the bike. Well, this is no different.
How's the recovery been for you? It's been about a year now.
It's been about a year. Slow at first. I honestly thought, being 30, everybody said you were going to bounce back. So I figured I'd be up in a week or so after surgery, moving around and just, doing normal activities again. That wasn't the case. It really took a lot out of me. I've never been a guy that took many painkillers of any sort. It's just never been my Tylenol be about the strongest thing I was asking for. And that's just not me. I can tough out just about whatever pain that you have. I couldn't sleep. First 2 weeks, you're glad to be alive. You're out of it. I'm not sure what my future holds in anything, really. I left the hospital with them saying, because I'd asked them, and everybody thought I was nuts, because the first thing I asked, when I come out of surgery and talked to my cardiologist is, after I found out I was going to be okay, how long? And everybody looked at me like I was crazy. And my family, of course, they knew what I meant. He had
and
no
when
idea.
you mean how long, you're talking about how long until you get...
How long am I out for?
Yeah.
And he's like, out for what? I'm like, I'm a professional wrestler, and he goes, he looked at her, or looked at everybody and goes, I think you're going to make a return. Like, I had a massive heart attack and only had 5% damage. I still have over 50% of my heart, which is still an athlete's heart. If you don't know, and most people don't know that, you don't use your entire heart. I have 51% of my heart left. And I've lost 3 to 5%, damage in the lower chamber, which I guess is the best place to have damage if you're going to have it. So I'm on blood thinners for a while because we had to make sure everything takes. I did those for 6 months. They wanted me on them longer, but we had talked about it and went over it. I mean, because I had a few blood clots in my arteries, but I tested negative for all the blood clotting diseases. So the best way we can chalk that up is the blood was blocked and it's going to clot. They blamed it on nicotine, smoking in general. That was the biggest cause. They'd never seen this in a guy my age. I'm sure it's happened somewhere around the world, but never around here. So I remember when he came in and he told me that, and they're asking me, you plan on still smoking? Very vividly, I remember my 10-year-old daughter going, no, he's not. And to this day, I've never picked up once again. So we're looking on it. It's easy now. I mean, well, they tell you, I'll see you in 5 years if you do it. It's a pretty selfish life to look at a 10-year-old and say, you don't matter enough to hang around for. And that's not, I couldn't do that. That's not anything she asked for. Right. And it's not fair to her. So that ended right there with that. I mean, it wasn't easy. I think I had the first 2 weeks coming home. It was pretty hard. I used to chew tobacco too. I had all the bad habits. I beat it by sticking Jolly Ranchers in my gums and pucking it out like I had a whole bunch of dip in my mouth. And I'd even spit and do the same things just like I used to. And 3 months later, I'm chewing gum. Now I'm not even doing that. Now I'm down to, I got a little e-cigarette with no nicotine in it. If I want to have a beer or something, that's the only time it ever seems to I ever really want one, and here lately, not even that. I remember when I first got it, I started using it a little bit, but I used it maybe for a day till the battery ran dead, and then I didn't see it for 2 months. Until I happened to think about it. So I think that's the good sign of, I think we beat it.
Yeah, that's good.
But, so, I mean, but it's not easy, but anybody, I'll tell anybody you can do it. If I can do it, anybody can.
No, you did smoke.
I was a heavy smoker.
Right. So everybody kind of wants to know, when are you coming back?
The $1 million question. As you know, we're, PWA Creative is very interested in me returning. It's no secret that I've been in here a few times. Feeling myself out and seeing what's in store. I guess the timing's got to be right. My mind's got to be in the right spot, which I've spent the last 3.5 months so far getting into it. If you didn't know, I got really, really pudgy there for a while after quitting smoking. I decided to eat a lot of steak and not do a whole lot. Well, I couldn't do a whole lot.
Right.
And so it's right now. It's timing for them. It's timing for me. It's timing and for my family. Of when's the right time? When is the right time for me to come back? The PWA family was great. The door has always been open. The outcry from people I haven't seen or even talked to in 15 years after. I talked to just about everybody. Everybody made an effort to get a hold of me, and so I'm coming back. I just don't know when. Well, Lord willing, I'm coming back. Nothing else goes wrong with me.
And how does friends and family feel about this? Are they supporting you to come back? Are they?
I think my mom's scared. She supports it. Everybody's scared. And not so much scared, I think, for, maybe the heart reasons so much as, I've been off a long time. Grand Wrestling Spectacle will be a year.
Yeah.
Do I still have it? Am I going to come back? And I'll be honest, if I can't come back and deliver the same way that I used to deliver or better, I won't come back. Because that's nothing, the fans didn't ask for a dumbed down version of me. They don't want to see a dumbed down version. Maybe they will, but I'm not going to let them see that. It's something that, they deserve better. They always have. And I've always been a big stickler about that. You know, I can't take it away, especially with the academy and all these young kids that are coming up, and man, they are doing great. You can't take a spot away from a guy like that if you can't hold it up with him, you can't take that spot. It's not fair to them. So it's feeling myself out and waiting for the right time and waiting. I mean, we're talking. I'm not going to lie and say that there hasn't been a few dates shot out to me. There's been several pitches in the last month and a half for me to return. Not all of them turned down by myself. It's just, the timing. And it's like I said, timing and when do we want to do it? How do we want to do it? I'm working as far as to get back. I mean, it's 30 minutes to 65, depending on what mood I'm in on an elliptical. Every other day I'm in here. I mean, I've helped out with the new kids as much as I possibly could, which is great because I didn't get to do the first class. Those kids didn't even know I really existed, other than I was gone for. I don't think I showed up in the academy to write till about these kids were getting ready to graduate. Before I started was up and moving, and it was 3 months before I was even just moving normally, let alone, and I still running out of breath. But it's getting my cardio back up, man, and it feels good. It feels good to be alive again. And I remember, it was almost like an epiphany, because I remember sitting down one day feeling sorry for myself because I did this, and I remember I looked at my mom, and I'll never forget this, and this wasn't long after I came out of the hospital, and saying, I gotta end this on my terms. And because they were really worried then. Selfishly, I said, I've got to end this on my terms. Not realizing or taking responsibility to the fact that I almost did end this on my terms. Nobody else's terms, they were mine. So I can now give two craps less about my terms. It's whatever the Almighty God's terms are, and whatever the will is He wants me to do is where I'll be and what I'll be doing. And I've always been religious, and it may not be popular, but then again, I've never been the guy that ever cared about popularity. So, and I remember that vaguely still it's in the back of my head. My terms. Well, I almost went out on my terms. So that's what my terms include, then I don't want it. So, but hopefully soon. I'm getting the itch.
I'm sure you are.
I was there at the Beardstown show. Man, it was 1,000 people there. I almost cried. I couldn't perform. So, but I'm working towards it. It's a goal. It's not going to be easy. I had to rebuild my cardio from the ground up. I don't know if anybody knows, but during open heart surgery, they deflate your lungs. So everything I had built up was gone. It literally came out like starting over on everything I do. I remember there was another company, won't mention any names, just out of respect for everybody else. Kind of walked into, helped a good old buddy of mine. Mickey Thomas was getting mad. Derek Moss. And I felt kind of blown up after doing something just little like that. But it's getting there. I'm starting to feel it. I'm starting, to find me again, doing some of the old stuff. I don't know. I haven't done enough yet to know that if I'm going to have to readjust my style completely, especially with having my chest cracked open. It's a nice little lovely scar right there. Whether or not, I've got to readjust my style or not. But hopefully not. Hopefully I'll just, come back and it'll be me and we can say it's a fairy tale kind of story and not have to step down. So.
Now, Bryan, we would wish you all the best luck for a full recovery.
Thank you.
Back in the ring, and hope to see you soon, definitely.
Yeah. Recovery's there. As far as feeling well, I feel better than I've felt in years. But just figure out how much. You almost feel like the old gunslinger trying to come back. But if it's possible, I'll be there. So,
Well, Bryan, thanks for the time.
thanks for the time with you.
Yeah. Well, there you have it, folks. Exclusive interview. Bryan Ealey.